my pleasure to welcome you to the festival. I'm speaking to you from the downtown East Side, which is situated on the beautiful homeland of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And very grateful to live on their beautiful territory and to weave our work with their work, which has been here since time immemorial. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to Olivia C. Davies, who will be hosting this event. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks very much, Terry. Oh, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to end up doing a little bit of tech support just right at the beginning, and then I'll go into my introduction and welcome. I do believe in the power of these circles being that we can witness one another. So as you can see, this meeting is being recorded. Should you choose to not have your image or audio included, please feel free to turn that off, but we'd love to have you in the circle with us. Something else I'll be doing is spotlighting when a speaker is up. So you'll see their face come up kind of wide in the middle of the screen, and everybody else will end up in the gallery at the top. And that'll be the case with the 4 speakers who are featured this evening. Okay, and if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to the person labeled HOTC Tech, and they will assist you as well. So that's that spiel. Okay, who am I? I'm Olivia. Thank you, Terry, for the welcome, and thank you, Heart of the City Festival, for inviting us to be a part of this year's festival once again with another Talking Truths special edition of the Downtown Eastside Grandmothers Collective. I'm coming to you from Anishinaabe Algonquin territory, which I call home, and has been my territorial ancestral home since my great-grandfathers of the, 1, 2, 3, yeah, so that's 4 generations back. I've been living in this space since 2020, just before the birth of my daughter Daisy. Prior to that, I was in Vancouver on unceded Coast Salish territory for 10 years. Which I also call home and will always be an artistic, cultural, and community home for me. Here in Anishinaabe Algonquin territory, I look out over to the Kitchissippi, the Great River, also known as the Ottawa River, and my mountain. Well, I don't really have a mountain here, but I do have the incredibly beautiful lands that are this space. In acknowledging that, I also acknowledge the fact that being that I was a guest on unceded Coast Salish territory for many, many years, and that's where Odella Arts and Matriarchs Uprising, as well as the Downtown Eastside Grandmothers Collective, were all founded. It's important for me to acknowledge the host nations of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam, and the Stolo along the Fraser River, who hold those lands and waters in a good way and have done so since time immemorial. I also offer that as an opportunity for all of us who may be guests on whichever territory we're on today, to consider what it means to be a good guest, what we're bringing with us, what we're leaving behind, and how that ripples forward into the future. If you choose to, please feel free to drop into our chat your name and where you're coming in from today. I don't believe that'll be included in the recording, but it is nice for all of us to situate where we are and where we're coming from. Okay, so I told you my name, a little bit about what I'm doing here today. So I'm hosting this circle as a member of the Downtown Eastside Grandmothers Collective that first came together. I guess it was kind of 2021, just before this past February's Matriarchs Uprising Festival, where I reached out to women who had really inspired me and had shared teachings with me, and over the years had come to be mentors and women I could call my grandmothers. I'm the great granddaughter of Aurore, the granddaughter of Rita, the daughter of Marianne, or Babe as she was known, and the mother of Daisy. That's my matriarchal continuum. These women I also consider to be my grandmothers, and I'll name them now. They're each going to say a hello, who they are and where they're from, and then we'll go into a bit more of a conversation about what it means to be members of this collective and what we're doing. So, Savannah Whaling, Rosemary Georgeson, Delana Gale Bowen, Sharon Jinkerson Brass, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Like I said, I'm going to pop you up all into the circle now. And Delana, if I may, I'll start with you. If you can tell us, please, who you are and where you come from.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us this afternoon, well, almost evening. So my name is Delana Gale Bowen. I am 78 years old, and I come from, born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I am the person that initiated the Downtown Eastside Center Circle of Grandmothers, which is for grandmothers who share teachings once a week. And Sharon Brass is one of them. And we try to share teachings as best we can so that people are informed about process and ceremony and ways of thinking. It is true that there is a lot going on in this world today. And so this every Friday session is a way for us to bring some semblance of order to people's lives by sharing teachings. I was born in Winnipeg. My heritage is my relatives were born in Sierra Leone, which is a country in Africa, and the white part of my culture is I don't know that part, what they are. So I'm a mix. I say, people ask me sometimes who I am, and I say I'm international because it covers a lot of ground. Yes, I think that's good for me for now.
Thank you so much, Delana. I'll turn it over to you, Rosemary Georgeson. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you for hosting this live. I love these circles. My name's Rosemary Georgeson. I am Coast Salish on my dad's side, Satu Dene from my mom's side up in the Northwest Territories. I live between here on the mainland and out in the Gulf Islands on Galliano. Yeah, I'm a daughter, sister, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. Sometimes I work with lots of other kids, doing other different work, supporting kids in care. Yeah, I just kind of do where the winds take me. Thank you.
I like that. I like that slip, though, where the wet winds take you, where those ocean winds take you. Thank you so much, Rosemary. Thank you for being here this evening. Sharon Brass, I'll turn it to you, please.
Oh, thank you, Olivia. What an honor it is and a gift to be part of this circle. My name is Sharon Jinkerson Brass, and my spirit name is Wapsi Beneshi Ikwe. It means White Thunderbird Woman. I am a member of Key First Nation in Saskatchewan. And on my dad's side, I never knew my dad. I'm a 60 scooper. So I returned home as a young woman and learned my traditional teachings from my matriarchal grandmother, who was a midwife and a traditional healer. And the most important medicine she ever taught me was love, to do everything with love and kindness. So thank you so much.
So much love and kindness. Thank you, Sharon. Savannah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to all, and for this great gift to be part of this circle, for which I'm have huge thanks. My name, Savannah Tennessee, is my great grandmother's name, and I also carry the name Shatsa, which is a Haida name meaning supporter of all things, from a Slinglanis clan. My training is in the performing arts. So I come from music and dance and theater work. And I am a mother, and I'm a descendant of refugees that came from Northern Europe back in the early 1600s and landed on the east coast of North America, and then drifted down through the Appalachians and Ozarks, down into West Virginia, down into Oklahoma and Texas, where my great grandparents had a farm on Comanche homelands that used to be Choctaw, Chickasaw homelands, that used to be Wichita homelands, and the Buffalo. And I was blown up into Canada by the winds of the Vietnam War, which is where I've been working ever since. And I ended up being planted into the downtown Eastside here on the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh ancestral homelands, and was my first experience of what it is like to be a part of a community and to experience ceremonies that connect to land and waters, because those are things that my family, drifting over the generations, had lost. Yeah.
A stunning history. What a map this is. Looking across the circle and just being so drawn to each one of your personal legacy stories and histories, and how they're, I guess, and the eloquence with which you can speak to that. I think that's something that as young people we're still striving to understand what it means to do the work of uncovering the layers, and that there's more opportunity to do that now probably than there was when you were youth growing up. I certainly know that I feel very lucky to be a mother today and recognize what it means to unpack all of that for my daughter so that she knows who she is and where she comes from. And that sort of, and brings me full circle back to Lana, what you were sharing about the circle of grandmothers that you founded in the downtown East Side, and teachings that are shared. I guess this next question, or this next seed in our circle, is really meant to give some understanding of what does ceremony mean to you, and how have you been transformed by ceremony in your life, maybe in your artistic life, or in your reality.
Good question. Well, first of all, I think that when we're talking about ceremony, it's our relationship with spirit. And for me, coming from a background of abuse and consequently drug abuse, I was very fortunate to be introduced to ceremony by a medicine man, and it saved my life. And so when I think of ceremony, I think of our relationship with spirit, and I think of how that can guide our lives, how that the practice of ceremony influences and changes our lives for the better. You know, it's walking in a sacred way, and it influences everything we do, how we think, how we act, our relationships. And so, yeah, I think that's all I can say about that.
Thank you. Sharon, being someone who moves these teachings in circle with Delana, maybe you'd like to share in your response next.
Well, I thought maybe I would share a short little vignette that actually, or story that happened to me that really brought home the power of ceremony, the power of our spirits, the power in nature, and the power in the great mystery. And one of the things, I was out vision questing in my community one spring, and I had an auntie pass away. She was dying of cancer, and before this, I was home for a few months on my res, and before, she asked me to come and be her witness, and she told me the story of her life and all the things that happened, the things she wished that would happen and didn't happen. And then she said, when we were finishing, this spring, you're going to see 2 snakes at the vision quest. And she said, it's okay, welcome them into your lodge. So sure enough, there I was questing, and in slithered this snake. And I was frightened. There was part of me that wanted to scream and run away, but my auntie had told me this was going to happen. And sure enough, there was this snake. And it just coiled up and lifted its head, just like in the movies, and looked at me, and I remained calm. But my people also say that snakes are the gatekeepers to the spirit world. That's what my auntie didn't say anything about. And the next thing that happened while I was questing, I'll try not to take up too much time. The next thing that happened was I started my moon time unexpectedly. So I asked if it was okay for me to stay on the land, and the elders decided yes. And I had the opportunity to let my blood flow into the earth the way my women had done for thousands of generations on Turtle Island. And there's sacred teachings around that. So I was able to experience that in the lodge. And on the next morning, in flew this white bird. It kind of looked like a dove, and it circled around inside my lodge 4 times. And I wasn't present at all. I was trying to look for something to scoop this bird up because I was so concerned it would get its wings caught up on my lodge. Anyway, it left, and it circled around 4 times. I heard it. And unbeknownst to me at that time, that was the very last time I ever had my moon time, ever. And the story goes from my grandmother that there's a little white bird that builds a nest in your womb. And when it lays an egg, that's when you start to have your moon time. And I realized the second part of that story is that little bird comes to visit you when you're done and takes that that cycle is concluded. So I realize, I think I maybe through that process experienced an ancient knowing and being just from being there at that particular time. And then to close the door, in came another snake when I was finished my quest to close the door to the spirit world. So that's just one of a whole cosmic array of stories I've experienced. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, Chimigwet, Sharon, that's a story I'll be chewing on for a while. Wow. Rosemary, Savannah, whoever would like to jump in next, please do.
Go ahead, Savannah.
It's a complicated territory, and one that I am learning and am being guided on it. For me, in part, ceremony has been meaning about learning to really listen, to look, to pay attention. And it's linked for me with learning from knowledge keepers and ancestors of this land. That's been part of it for me. And it's been part of walking back to go forward, which were words I heard Arlene Bowman, a filmmaker, say today that really struck me about how walking back is a way to go forward or to have understanding of where you're walking. And it's been around holding space for healing and learning for our ancestors and our descendants, and also space for helping to make right relations or to repair damaged relations, I think. And for me, there have been certain important ceremonies that for me over the years that have all been part of making me who I am now and the roads that I'm walking on now. And so, and I'm not used to sharing about them. One of them was around when I had the opportunity to have a choreographic fellowship in Arizona at the Cross Cultural Dance Resources. And my mentor, an anthropologist and dancer, Joanne Keali'i no Homoku, introduced me to some of the ceremonies of the land surrounding, and to friends that have become part of our extended family, including a godparent of my son. And one of the ceremonies had taken into the ceremony of the Native American church, and I started hearing stories about Juana Parker at the ceremony and the teachings around that. And they were teaching of how he had been a Comanche chief, mixed blood himself, and how he'd helped to bring the ceremony into the States. And it was reminding me of the stories that I'd heard about Juana Parker and his mother, who had been stolen as a small child from the Texans. Her family killed in a very brutal raid, and then she was raised with a lot of love among the Comanches, with whom she found her home, and then married and had children with the Comanches, of whom one of them was Juana Parker. And then she was once again the subject of a brutal raid when Texas Rangers and volunteers, whom some stories say one of my ancestors was part of, came through, and they were killed many of these women and children, old men in a hunting camp, and she was taken back to her Texas family. And she never really adjusted back to that life. And she was always grieving for the son that she never saw again. And she died before he surrendered with the last group of Comanches when they surrendered at Fort Sill in Fort Lawton, in the town of Lawton. And then he spent the rest of his years looking to try to find pictures or stories of his mother to really connect with her, and he never did. His youngest son ended up living on the farm next to my great-grandparents. And he was married to the daughter of another child of a mixed race family, of a child of her father had been stolen by Comanches as well. And then they were neighbors of my family, and one of their descendants became best friends with my aunt. So it was like weaving together all these personal stories with the stories that were coming in this ceremony and giving me a different sense of my own responsibilities, I guess, to carry forward the stories and memories of where I come from, and to how to pass those on to other generations and all. But also this experience was a real education, as I said, on listening and respect for the people that you're coming to and working with. But I also had the experience of being part of ceremony where, in the case of a Sundance, and where afterwards I had tried to create something that was inspired by it, but I went around about it in the wrong way and without consulting elders, etc. And it was a project that was never able to happen as it was envisioned. And I began to understand where I had been making serious mistakes and what I needed to learn more about on the road, and mistakes that I'm still learning from as coming forward. And some of the learnings from those mistakes were part of the creative journey around the big house, Rose, that you were a part of, and also part of the journey around weaving reconciliation our way, which was a journey, a creative journey that involved a bringing together of ceremony, cultural practices, and Western rooted art, and in creating another way of interacting, with people in the part of the world that we're engaging with. And then the last thing that I'll share was the ceremony of being adopted into the Tlinglannis clan is something that I'm learning to understand what are the responsibilities that come with being given a name, and knowing that in our case of my husband Terry and myself, a major part of that responsibility is to help support as we can through our art, cultural practice and presence of Indigenous artists and knowledge keepers, etc., of this land where we can. So that's a little bit of the story of my relations with ceremony.
Thank you, Savannah. And might I just say that the breadth of historical information you've just shared with us all, I'm so glad this is being recorded, because once again, I feel like there's a lot to unravel from that, and how it all interweaves with where your experience began in that dance residency. Like, just incredible. Yeah. Rosemary, you were presenced by Savannah, specifically in Weaving Reconciliation Our Way. Do you want to tell us more?
Where to start? Holy cow. I've been sitting here thinking about what ceremony means to me, what it is in my world, in my way of being. As I was thinking about it, I was also remembering that as someone who was born in the 50s, we weren't allowed to practice ceremony. And due to historical things that were done to our people, we were taken out of it. So we had no connection to ceremony. which led to a lot. My mother is a residential school survivor. There was a, we were kind of hidden away so that we didn't know this stuff, because if we knew it, we would have been taken. There was always the boats there with those priests on them coming around through the islands where we lived there, which led to a lot of, abuse in every different form. Always feeling like there was a part of us missing.
Mm, mm,
To fill that gap, there was a lot of drugs and alcohol to try and fill it, which
Mm.
didn't.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but as time went on and I took that big lifestyle change there over 20 years ago, I realized that growing up, there was so many things that my father did that were part of ceremony
mm,
that we didn't understand. That we thought, Dad, oh, Dad, what are you doing? That's just, crazy stuff. But then it was, the way that the first fish was caught and how we had to think. And Dad would do these little things, and he would do them silently, thinking we wouldn't see it. And it was such a part of his world. But he couldn't pass it on to us because of what was going on around us at the time. So, and that big lifestyle change that I took, it allowed those things to come to the forefront and realize that we'd always had these ceremonies
mm,
around us and that they were always present in some way, and to understand them and realize what my father was doing, and my grandfather and the old aunts and uncles, my grandmother, they'd always been there. And to live in a time now where it's okay to acknowledge these ceremony
mm, mm.
and these practices is incredible. And it's been life-changing to be able to have that freedom to understand and acknowledge these ceremonies and to be part of them. It feels like that empty void that was inside of me all of my life is getting filled with them. And I feel I'm so proud that I can be part of these ceremonies now and honor my ancestors who passed them on and how they've kept coming forward
Mm.
through times when we weren't allowed to have them, and to not express them, not participate in them. So living this life today where we can be part of it is absolutely incredible. And it's like it's filled that part of me. Thank you.
Yeah.
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 Chimigwet, Rose, and again to each and every one of you for sharing your stories of transformation through ceremony. I could rattle on about my own. I'll quickly say this. I also had a major life change 10 years ago this year. And as I recall, prior to that, I'd been looking for something to fill the gap. And I literally scraped my knee stumbling into Anishinaabe Health Toronto, and I found out about the full moon ceremonies that were being held for women in the community, and I started to join a ceremony once a month, and I could see clearly for that instance in time and see very clearly that this was exactly where I needed to be, where I wanted to be, where my spirit called me to be. And even if it took another 28 days of other stuff to fill that void, man, when I was in those circles, radiating with the love of everybody in that space, regardless of where we were coming from, what levels of sobriety we were at, we were welcome to be there. We were welcome to experience the teachings, to bring what we could, to let go of what we needed to, bring what we could, give out what we can. And I state that as a teaching that was actually shared with me from one of my first mentors in Vancouver, Michelle Olson of Raven Spirit Dance. And she references Sa'aplak Bob Baker of the Squamish Nation, who shared that teaching with her, where we have to let go of what we don't need so that we have space to gather in what we do. And there we can give out what we can. And I don't know if I really connected the dots until this conversation, that what I was experiencing prior to my big life change in fumbling, finding my way to these full moon circles was like that moment of letting go of what I didn't need, to make space for all the teachings and the water and the berries and all the beautiful things that were shared, and then walk out giving out what I could, just like, even if that just meant a 24-hour period of peace in my life. Well, I share all of this, and then I'm going to bring you forward into the future, but the recent past. So in February 2022, this collective, this circle, joined forces with Vancouver dance artists Zine Kwan and Rianne Svelnes at the space that Zine holds called Moro. And we held our first residency as the Grandmothers Collective, the Downtown Eastside Grandmothers Collective. And over a couple wonderful hours, I never really counted the time, but it wasn't a whole lot of time. It felt like a lifetime, because that's what happens when you gather and share story and pour tea. And over the residency, we co-created a beautiful ceremony that was then shared via live stream on Facebook at the end of our Matriarchs Uprising Festival. And we look forward to joining in residency again at the next Matriarchs Uprising Festival next February. I share this with you now. I'm going to share a little clip that actually features Savannah to give us a bit of context into the sort of the second part of the conversation that we'll go into next. So women, you may have already seen this, and for those of you who may have seen it live, it still lives on Facebook too, and I'd be happy to share the link. So I'm just going to fiddle with the share screen options here to make sure you can see what I'm going to do. Host, excuse me. HOTC Tech, can you give me host, please? And then you can give me back to co-host so I can share this video. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So here we go. Make sure you can hear it and see it. Okay. So do you see a screen that looks like a Facebook screen?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, great. So I'm going to share about 2.5 minutes of what was our first residency and the ceremony that came from it.
Carrying my grandmother's name, Savannah, Tennessee. Thank you, grandmother, great grandmother. Carrying this deed from my great grandfather, Henry Crawford, to land purchased from the Chickasaw and the Choctaw nations, carried here into Canada. Where I came during the war of Vietnam, and then came to a mountaintop in Banff. And at the top of the mountain, a seashell from me under the sea creatures there on the mountain, reminding us of the layers we carry. Thank you. Cedar roses of this land, made by women of the downtown Eastside. Thank you. For a homeland, a place of refuge. Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, Musqueam, an adopted family, Haida, Sha'atsa, supporter of all things I thought. An orange to this land of the downtown Eastside Chinatown, the ancestors from Asia. I give thanks to the friendships and relationships. Thank you. And from the southern plains, ancestors that came hundreds of years ago, down the Appalachians into the southern plains, and the place where blessings are given with corn, coming from the earth. Sacred corn.
Welcome back, everyone. So that was a clip from, as I mentioned, our Downtown Eastside Grandmothers Collective first residency this past February. And considering our collective creation practice that began there, I'm curious to know, how are you all reconsidering what it means to create ceremony now with other artists, with other women, with other storytellers?
I'll jump in. I think what's so important, culture binds us together. Culture is a reflection of our journeys and the necessity for us to belong and to be connected to the mystery of all of creation. Because there's some things we just can never comprehend about the universe. What was here before the Big Bang? If there was a Big Bang, who came before the creator? What is the creator? So we need something to carry us and to hold us. And just in my experience, because of the damage of colonization and residential school, our ceremonies sometimes do the opposite. They make people feel uncertain, fearful, because the container has been so damaged by real terror and things that went on. So for me, the work with the grandmothers is so sacred and vitally important, because I think it's bringing into being the future, as Olivia had talked about. And I think we were finding ways to a sisterhood, to love, to creating something in the moment that is a reflection of more than who we are even. And I think that we need a blossoming of all kinds of expressions of this belonging and the mystical side and being a part of all of creation. So I think that we've gone from a place of silence and oppression, as Rosemary had talked about, to now even questioning the container, because we can see in our ceremonial world, there's many pieces missing. And I think we are really in the moment bringing what's in the wind. And there's something in the wind for every single one of us who are journeying here on Mother Earth. Thank you.
Mhm.
I got to be part of some things this past summer. We were another circle of women that I've been spending time with over the last couple of years, and we've had a lot of youth involved with us. And the youth that were involved with us knew nothing about their First Nations ancestry. All shy young girls, didn't speak out. But as they spent time with us and they were part of ceremony with us, I got to watch them grow. They thought, oh, grandma, she's an artist. She's always doing crazy things. You get auntie over there, you never know what she's going to do next and stuff like that. But then watching them over the last 2.5 years and the young women that they become through being part of ceremony with us. My granddaughter will question things now when the teachers tell her, this is how Indigenous people do things. She'll message me right away and go, is that true, Grandma? That's from being part of ceremony, of filling that place with them, giving them back, not giving them back something, but them finding something that's always been a part of them that they didn't know was there.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
And there's strength in it for all of us. I love where I'm at now. I love
Yeah.
that we can sit and do this, share our stories and speak them openly and talk about ceremony and what it gives back to us.
Yeah.
Echka.
I think that what I've witnessed with myself and with the people that I Sundance with is nothing short of miraculous in the way the transformation has happened. It is, you know, it's not something that you can say, okay, if you do this, this is going to happen. This is the result. Because as we know, there's no such thing as a guarantee. But with myself and with others that are in our Sundance family, you can't help but acknowledge that you're witnessing not something short of miraculous in the way that transformation has happened. And it's not that you know, it's not something that we go, I believe that, I'm jumping around a little bit. I believe that ceremony finds you as much as you find ceremony. The desire for change has to be strong. The cries for help, the frustration at not being satisfied where your life is, all those things complement ceremony coming to you. Whether you meet a person like I did with Robert, but it comes. And the important thing is to be open to accept the call. And it's an intangible, because you can't say, okay, on this date at this time, blah, 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 is going to happen, right? It is just something that happens. And whether you, because your preparedness is being unhappy with the unhealthy way that you're living, in my humble opinion. It's being dissatisfied with where you are and what's going on in your life. For those of us that need the change, others don't necessarily need it to come that way because they're already there. But for those of us who have, for example, had a difficult childhood, alienation, no sense of belonging, all those things that take you away from yourself. That's when the call is answered by divine intervention, I think. It's the gift of life.
I feel that for me personally, in part, what this means is it's part of a lifelong learning journey, and it is accepting an invitation to be part of an Indigenous-led, Indigenous-centered creative journey, and one that is expanding to include more of our community of this connected to the downtown East Side, and the journey of the last 20 years has been a journey of learning from the many people and teachers of this community that we're part of, the community members, that every single person has had something to teach. And so I feel like this is a journey of being guided by those who are part of the journey and doing the best to be able to support, contribute, and serve what is needed, and to help create a safe and respectful space for sharing, and a way to share these journeys that are something that we can help weave together some of the rivers that are forming our communities, the cultural rivers, and also to help weave together the legacies that we are bringing forward to pass on to our children and our children's children and those beyond. And that's a bit of where I feel like I'm sitting. And I think it's also coming because I'm at a place in my artistic life where I feel like myself and our company, in some ways, we've become like a mother tree of a kind, and where is it that we can help support or help nourish, the seedlings and other saplings that are coming into that. So that has to do with the cycle of place where I am at 76 years old in my life too. And part of me participating in this journey is what I want to be able to leave my son, his family.
That's the beauty part of ceremony. It's what bringing it back into our lives. It's what I get to leave for my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren.
Mm.
In the description for this conversation, I included the term neo-indigenous, and I want to break that down a little bit, as it actually first came into my zeitgeist, I guess I'll call it, into my world from the dance artist Santee Smith of Six Nations.
Oh, yeah.
Kawahi Dance Theater. She created a solo called Neo Indigena 10 years ago. And I witnessed it. And a composer friend of mine who has now collaborated with me, who I didn't know at the time, had made some of the most incredible music with Tanya Tagaq for this killer dance show that was just so amazing. And I thought, that's what I want to do. That's the thing. Sold, totally. Like she was a rock star in my world at that point in my life, and I still keep a very high regard for everything that Kawahi Dance Theater has given to contemporary Indigenous dance today. Story short, I can ramble on. The circle setting does that. Neo-Indigena. So neo-Indigenous has now become this term where I have related it to this way of looking at our Indigenous ways of being through a lens that holds space for the efforts made in the past to preserve tradition, but that also holds space. So it's kind of this strange bubble into a bubble with that beautiful Zen Venn diagram circle in the middle that holds the space for transformation of those traditions to encompass new perspectives that help welcome the future. So maybe that bubble in the middle is that space of possibility for the future to exist. And I guess I bring that into this space because for me, as both a participant and host of this collective and the residencies that we will continue to create and the ceremonies that we are collectively creating, feels very much to me like all of that kind of happens just by sitting together, sharing stories, sharing tea, and then being like, okay, ladies, it's go time. let's bring it all together and see what kind of magic happens. What you witnessed in that short excerpt, and again, feel free to witness the whole 30 minutes and the conversation that followed through the Matrix Uprising Facebook site, is the example of women coming together, sharing stories over tea, over a couple hours, over a couple days. My daughter even came one day. Oh, right, I remember that. Daisy was in the room with us that one day too. And then being like, well, what is it that's important to us to bring forward? And we started to bring our medicines forward. We each brought pieces of I almost said memorabilia, memory, protocol, history, and future remembering into that space, so that we could co-create this vision of what our future might be. So all of that to say, I did just want to share why the term Neo-Indigena was included in the description of this circle, my closing thoughts that I would love to hear from each of you, and then open up to our witnesses to share any relational conversation back with us. But first I'll ask Sharon, Savannah, Delana, and Rosemary, that's how you come in my circle on my screen. What are your hopes for the future of your artistic and ceremonial traditions? And Sharon, I'll start with you, please.
Well, apart from being honored to be a part of this process, it's amazing to work with creative collaborators who are interested in the mystical side of creativity. And I also had a math dance company with my partner who's in the spirit world now, and that was what drove us, was being guided always by the ancestors and always inviting spirit to be a part and to take us to meet and encounter spirits we've known from the day we were born, but had no language or territory to express that, to enter into a space where infinite possibilities could be present, and to challenge ourselves to take risks in it. And what I want to leave is comfort, a legacy of love, a legacy of confidence in who we are as Indigenous people today. And I want my grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren to never be afraid of the mystical side of the world, because in mainstream society it's spooky, it's scary. But in our dream world is to be embraced. Our ancestors, my granny had a saying, she used to say, the ancestors are so lonely in the spirit world, they're waiting for us to call on them. So I want to leave that phone number for everybody. That's how I feel about it. And so often it seems like such a neat little package, but somebody here was talking about answering the call. I think it was Delana. And every time I've answered the call and trusted, I found myself. And when I've been afraid and hesitated, I'm alone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Savannah.
I think for me, it's a desire to be able to leave healthy, nourishing ripples for the future and for future generations. And what are the gifts and the ways that we can leave that behind, leave that for them, both in terms of living practice and in terms of what is created in publication or film or live stream, again, that can move forward. And I also feel that our survival as human beings on this earth is dependent on bringing together the understandings of and ancestral wisdom that is carried by Indigenous peoples of these lands and those newcomers that have come from other places. And that without them, I don't think we're going to survive as a species. So I feel that this kind of work and this kind of passing on and this care for the legacy and the choices that we're making now and the implications for our children and the generations to come are related to our very survival.
Delana.
I think that one of the things that should and could be our legacy is inspiration. It inspiration to take that step uh, that you wouldn't normally take inspiration to 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 take the wisdom that has been learned and earned from our ancestors and bring it into our world. Um, it seems to me that the real thing about legacies is what are you passing? What's the torch that you're passing? And what is that holding? Because we all have things that we learn over our lifetime. How are those things passed on? And how is it received? Is it created in such a way that it is people are willing to receive it? So the delivery is important as the content, because if they don't want to receive it, then doesn't matter what the content is, right? So how we leave a legacy is important as what is the legacy.
Mm.
Thank you.
So legacy. Ah, I love the way you said that, Delana. What is the legacy? What are we leaving? I want my children, my grandchildren, future generations to know that they have the freedom to choose,
Yeah,
to go with what's in their heart,
yeah,
not to have to hide anything away.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things we can hope for, is that they always have that right to follow their hearts, to understand that they can carry ceremony with them, that they can do it without fear, and to know that there's generations behind them supporting them and holding them for that.
Yeah.
I think that's the hope for the future,
Mm.
and that they know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking at pictures of my great granddaughter all day, because I'm going to see her in a couple days, and I just think about what she's going to carry with her through her life.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Aichika.
Miigwech. I say thank you very much to each and every one of you, Delana, Savannah, Sharon, Rosemary, and to each and every one of you, our witnesses who've joined us this evening live or are watching this recording through the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival's website. We're so grateful to have had the space for this circle. I know we've got just a few minutes left, but I do want to open up the circle again. If you'd like to turn on your video and join us in the space, I'm going to drop out of all the spotlights and turn this into a big circle again. And if you'd like to share, a gentle witness account or comment, I don't know that we necessarily have space for questions, but do feel free to continue to reach out to each of us through the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival, or watch Matriarchs Uprising online for more news about our next collective residency happening next February.
Well, I think the
Thank you.
creator might have just called Natalie.
Let's see that phone pick up pretty quick. You were just teased for a moment, Natalie, that Sharon saw you pick up a call from the creator.
What? Just my food delivery.
Well, that's an important call. Awesome. Oh,
Well, thank you, my dear, for hosting.
you're so welcome. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Mhm.
My heart is full.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. It's just wonderful sharing. I just, a little note, I just love Sharon's smile. This is just such a beautiful smile. I mean, you all have great smiles, but that one I just kept getting drawn in. I'm not a grandmother, but I am a grandmother age. And this is a really rich time for me as well, learning about some new things. And I found this very inspiring. So lots of, I won't say all the things that I kind of picked up on, but just one thing about that Delana said about the desire for change has to be strong. That ceremony comes to you as much as you come to it, to be open and to be prepared. So I'm really gonna keep looking at that. So, but thanks for all of your sharing.
Thank you, Sherry. Sabrina, I'm just going to say I love the painting in the background of the dancers. It's caught my eye a couple times, and now that you're big in the circle, I can see it even better. What wonderful movement. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, shoot. No, it's not even a mute question. Oh. Oh. You can put it in the chat. There might not be a microphone on it, but anyways, it's a beautiful painting. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Yeah. Natalie, Sherry, and anyone else who's on the call. To the Heart of the City Festival technicians, thank you so much for your support this evening too. And again, Terry, Savannah, thank you for everything you bring to the Vancouver arts community, the Coast Salish arts community, and worldwide by sharing this conversation internationally through the World Wide Web. So with my heart full, I wish you all a wonderful evening, and thank you once again. Please do keep in touch, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.